The fire crackled in the center of the Apache camp, sending sparks into the darkening desert sky, and every eye turned toward Nia as the chief's command settled over the circle like a storm cloud. She stood tall despite the weight of it, her shadow stretching across the sand, her heart pounding but her face calm, carved from years of survival and loss. For most women, the chief's order would have been a sentence disguised as tradition. Choose a husband, bind your life to his, and silence your own path forever. The men knelt before her in a half-moon, warriors and traders, sons of respected families, all waiting to be chosen. But among them knelt a stranger, his clothes worn by dust and travel, his hands bound, his eyes sharp with defiance and curiosity. The cowboy did not belong here. He had been found days earlier wandering near the canyon, half dead from thirst, captured by scouts who debated whether to kill him or trade him. Nia remembered that moment clearly, how he had looked at her not with fear or hunger, but with respect, as if she were not an object to be owned or a prize to be claimed. The chief's voice echoed again, reminding her that the tribe needed unity, alliances, strength. Her choice would shape the future. As a child, Nia had dreamed of freedom beyond the ridgelines, of a life not dictated by custom alone, but life had beaten those dreams down with grief. Her mother had died young, her father in battle, leaving her raised by the tribe, molded into what they needed her to be. Strong, silent, obedient when it mattered, yet something in her had never broken. She looked at the kneeling men one by one, feeling the eyes of elders, warriors, and children burning into her back. She could hear whispers, feel expectations tightening like a rope. Then without hesitation she lifted her arm and pointed, not at a proud Apache warrior, not at a man chosen by tradition. She pointed at the cowboy. A gasp rippled through the camp, sharp and collective, like the intake of breath before a fight. The chief's eyes narrowed, disbelief and anger flashing across his weathered face. The cowboy looked up, startled, then slowly smiled, not arrogantly, but as if he understood the risk she had just taken for both of them. Murmurs rose, some furious, some confused, some afraid. The chief demanded to know why she would shame the tribe, why she would choose an outsider with no blood, no history, no loyalty proven by years of battle. Nia's voice when she spoke was steady and clear. She said she chose a man who looked at her as an equal, not a possession. She chose a man who owed his life to the tribe and would fight to earn his place. She chose her own path. The fire snapped loudly as if answering her words, and in that moment the camp stood on the edge of change, tradition clashing with courage. The chief dismissed the council for the night, his decision delayed but not forgotten, and guards dragged the cowboy away under watchful eyes. As the crowd dispersed, Nia felt fear creep in, but also a strange, powerful hope. She had pointed at more than a man. She had pointed at a future no one expected, and as she stared into the dying embers of the fire, she knew the hardest part was still to come. The night brought no rest, only whispers and judgment carried on the wind. And when dawn broke over the desert, it found Nia already awake, standing at the edge of the camp, watching the guards lead the cowboy toward the river to wash and drink. His name, she learned, was Ethan, and he carried his past the way the land carried scars, quietly, without complaint. The chief called a gathering before the sun reached its peak, and the tension was thick enough to taste. Some warriors argued that Ethan should be killed, others that he should be cast out, a few that the chief's word had been challenged and honor demanded punishment. The chief listened, stone-faced, then called Ethan forward. He told him that to stand beside an Apache woman was no small thing, that if Nia's choice stood, Ethan would have to prove his worth not with words but with action. When raiders struck a nearby hunting party that very afternoon, fate moved faster than debate. Ethan volunteered without hesitation, grabbing a spear offered by a skeptical warrior, riding out with men who did not trust him and did not care if he lived. Nia watched from the ridge as dust rose in the distance, her chest tight with fear she refused to show. Hours later, the group returned battered but victorious, carrying wounded and spoils reclaimed, and Ethan among them bleeding but standing, having saved one of the chief's sons when an arrow flew from the rocks. The camp fell silent as the truth settled in. This outsider had fought for them, not for reward, not for survival alone, but because he had been given a chance. That night the chief spoke again, his voice heavier, wiser. He said tradition existed to protect the people, not to cage their spirits. He said strength could come from unexpected places. He accepted Nia's choice, The celebration that followed was cautious but real. Drums beating into the night, stories retold with new endings. Later, away from the firelight, Nia and Ethan sat beneath the stars, speaking softly of fears of pasts left behind, of a future neither could fully imagine. Their union was not a fairy tale, not a sudden ending to struggle, but the beginning of something earned, respect built through choice, not force. As seasons passed, Ethan learned the ways of the Apache, and Nia learned that choosing her own path did not mean abandoning her people. Together, they became a symbol whispered about by neighboring tribes and travelers alike. A woman who dared to point at freedom, and a man who dared to stand where he did not belong until he did. If this story moved you, if you believe in courage, choice, and breaking chains written by fear, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because more powerful stories like this are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one.